Hey everybody, this is Mike. Today is June 25th, 2020. It's already been a really unusual day today for me, and hopefully some of the weirdness will pass through in our talk. Today's topic is going to be about demons and a demonic system, or the demonic system which we're living in. Now, demon, every culture, every religion, they have some version of a demon, whether it's called that, or a jinn, or an archon, or Watiko. And I'm not really certain, are demons like actual things? Are they metaphors? I don't know. I don't know for certain, but I certainly know that there are many people that do see them as conscious entities, and perhaps that's the case. But for the purpose of how I'm describing them now is anything that is anti-human, I'm calling demonic. And whether or not that ties to specific beings, well, I don't know. But there's certainly a lot of anti-human behavior and policies that are out there. And so let's talk a moment about being human. So there's the human being, the homo sapien. Homo sapien actually means wise one, wise people, and that's what we are. And we are literally at one with the environment we live in, what we call Earth, whatever Earth may be. The way we are designed, we are intimately connected with it. The easiest way of understanding that is just by looking at circadian rhythms, the way that our natural internal workings are in complete harmony with the workings in which the environment we live in is. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And so anything that's pro-human and anti-Earth is actually anti-human, because Earth and humanity are one and the same. And anything that's good for the Earth but bad for people, that's anti-human and anti-Earth also. It's when you're working with something which is truly in the benefit of humanity, it has to be in benefit of the Earth. And to be in benefit of humanity, humans cannot be played against each other. That by definition is anti-human, which is demonic. So we want to keep that in mind with the definition which we're using. And we're going to be talking about demons and the stuff we're going to get into. Another thing which we want to keep in mind is the fact that any problem which we come across which is of a natural problem, there's always going to be a solution. Any problem which is demonically created, whether from a specific demon or from a demonic system, there are no solutions. That's one of the ways of knowing if you're working with a demonic problem or not, whether there's a solution or not. So keep that in mind. And then also, we have to recognize one of the qualities of being human, one of our capabilities or superpowers, if you will, is our adaptability to physical environment. We become what we're around, and we can thrive and survive and live harmoniously in almost any environment. But the flip side of that is, regardless of what the environment is, we will naturally become imprinted to that. So where we're going to get to at the end of this video is talking about, this demonic system, which, if you're watching this, you've been born and raised in it. We're participating in it right now with computers. I'm looking forward to the day when the computers are gone. I don't want to interact with this, but I recognize, its purpose right now, and it's a lot of people who I speak to who seem to be open-minded in a lot of ways, they are not able to fully grasp the fact that, you know, this computer, your phone, it's all got to go away. It has to go away because it's demonic. And before it can go away, you have to realize that you want it to go away. You know, anyone who's addicted to anything, you know, the first step is realizing you don't want to be addicted anymore. So, much of what this is going to go to, this talk today, is about recognizing that there has to be a walking away from the demonic system. And this demonic system, like, you know, there are parts of it which are not going to be readily obvious that it's demonic. And because we're naturally so integrated with our environment, it's going to feel like home. And so that's going to be part of the process as well. But if you pay attention, there's something much, much greater, which is outside of the demarcation of the bubble which we're living in. And so anything which we do see as beneficial, for example, you know, the computers and the internet, the ability to, in a very, very tangible way, communicate with people over vast distances, you know, that's a truth. We're just seeing another sign of a demonic system is it's an inversion of a higher truth. So also keep in mind that though we cannot necessarily imagine completely what that may look like, because all we can do is reflect back to the images that have been given to us, we can kind of reverse engineer and say, well, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I know it's going to have these qualities. It's going to be in harmony with all humanity. It's going to be in harmony with the environment which we live in. And it's going to be able to replicate probably even better than what we're seeing in the inverse demonic system. So that all being said, let's jump right into this. We're going to jump in with a little bit of history. We're going to talk about Bacon's Rebellion. Let me get this out of here. So Bacon's Rebellion occurred in 1677 in Jamestown, colony of Virginia. So immediately, if you're familiar with like any of the work of The Secret of Susquehanna, you know Jamestown is like a big deal. That's where it all began. This is 1767, so this is a good 70 years later after the establishment of Jamestown. But this still is, and there's a much larger Virginia colony at this time. But nonetheless, this begins in Jamestown, and Bacon's Rebellion is not a reference to Francis Bacon, but to Roger Bacon, and they're different guys who both have the same name. You know, you take that however way you want. So, Bacon's Rebellion was the first rebellion in the American colonies in which discontented frontiersmen took part, somewhat similar to the uprising in Maryland that took part afterwards. This is where we want to go. The alliance between European indentured servants and Africans, many enslaved until death or freed, united their bond servitude and disturbed the ruling class. So Bacon's Rebellion is a big deal because this was, you know, you had like one class of people and then you had another class of people. And at that time, indentured servants from Europe and slaves from Africa, they were on the same rung of this demonic system. Like immediately you know that when you have human beings who are enslaved by other human beings, this is demonic. And this is not by any stretch of the imagination limited to what happened in the United States, because slavery is found throughout the history, all throughout the planet. That demonic element has shown itself all over the place. But we want to point out what about the Bacon's Rebellion, because it represents a point, a changing to a more an even more diabolical plan. And so both European indentured servants and enslaved Africans they're brought in against their will. They're brought to this new world. And the indentured servants, the difference between the slaves and the indentured servants were that slaves were thought of as property. They were owned, whereas indentured servants were more so like rented. Like you could almost imagine it was treated the difference between the car you own and your rental car. The indentured servitude would end usually, some period of time. But the human being that was owned by another human being, that was considered like an asset, and so it was shitty for everyone, obviously, all around. And the people who are on the lowest rung, they recognized this, and they realized that they outnumbered those that held them captive. And that's what the Bacon Rebellion was. It was a uniting of all of the different types of controlled human beings to fight against. They're controlling entities. So what happened after the rebellion was eventually put down, and what happened afterwards was, I'll just read it here. This is from the ruling class responded by hardening the racial caste of slavery in an attempt to divide the two races from subsequent united uprisings with the passage of the Virginia Slave Codes of 1705. So now we're beginning to see, this is when I was talking about like a demonic system, there is no solution. Like this is where we're starting to see a problem, which is really like bubbling up. Because this was created diabolically. There are no solutions to problems that were started like in the way that it has. We're dealing with people who are brought from against their will, and then they are played against one another. This is the chess master who is able to play the 9 opponents against each other. This is the move. So let me read this. Legal scholar Michelle Alexander writes, "The events of Jamestown were alarming to the planter elite, who were deeply fearful of the multiracial alliance of indentured servants and slaves. Word of Bacon's rebellion spread far and wide, and several more uprisings of similar type followed. In an effort to protect their superior status and economic position, the planters shifted their strategy for maintaining dominance. They abandoned their heavy reliance on indentured servants in favor of the importation of more black slaves." So we're beginning to see how people are being played against each other. Now get a load of this. After Bacon's rebellion, Virginia lawmakers began to make legal distinctions between white and black inhabitants. So up until this point, there was really no differentiation between white folk and black folk, okay? It was like, are you a free person or are you not a free person? And then these divides are beginning to be added in just by using words. Like obviously, like you could tell by looking at people that they come from different parts of Earth. But it is the word magic is where we begin to see the division planted. So this is happening like in the early 1700s. Soon after Bacon's rebellion, they increasingly distinguish between people of African descent and people of European descent. They enact laws which say that people of African descent were hereditary slaves, and they increasingly gave power to independent white farmers and landholders. So this is where there's this play against each other. And this was done in many, many levels. Like the more you can slice and dice, like giving someone a little bit more and a little bit less, it creates a division within what's already separated from the ruling, those that rule humanity and those that are being ruled. But I want to go a little bit deeper into the words, the introduction of the words of black and white as a way to differentiate the human family. So I'm going to go here. All right, let's go here. Let's start here. So this is from the Spike Lee film Malcolm X, which is a theatrical rendition of the autobiography of Malcolm X. And there was a really dramatic scene in which a young Malcolm X, under the guidance of a jailhouse tutor, began to educate Malcolm X. As it relates to both word magic and subliminals. And so they're looking at a dictionary. So I'm just going to go and read the script. We can read the fine print of the definition. And this is what it says in the dictionary. Black, destitute of light, devoid of color, enveloped in darkness, hence utterly dismal or gloomy, as the future looked black. And then Malcolm responds, you understand them words? And then Bembry responds, read it. And then Malcolm says, I can't make out that shit. Soiled with, so this is Bembry again, soiled with dirt, foul, sullen, hostile, forbidding as a black day, foully, outrageously wicked as black cruelty, indicating disgrace, dishonor, and culpability. Malcolm, hey, that's some shit, all right? And then Bembry, now look up white. And so they go and they turn to the dictionary about white. And so what do we see right here? Bembry turns to the dictionary to W. Read it. Close-in shot of the definition of white. Malcolm reads, white, of the color of pure snow, reflecting all the rays of the spectrum, the opposite of black, hence free from spot or blemish, innocent, pure, without evil intent, harmless, honest, square dealing, honorable. Then Malcolm says, that's bullshit. That's a white man's book. Ain't all these white man's books? So now we've got two layers now. So a truth is being pointed out here. So we just saw how the word magic was introduced in the 1700s. And now we're seeing in this book, you know, in Webster's dictionary, we could go down, the Webster tale is a very interesting one as well, but it is playing more so within the word usage of the meanings of these colors, which are then tied to people. But it goes deeper than that. Because when we go and we look at the definition of white, you know, this implies, like, on a certain level, it's like, oh, okay, you know, white folk are good folk, right? Like, you know, that's what they're saying. But let's go and look at the history of the word white, right? So white, coming back from Old English, means thing or demon. Old English, white, creature, something, anything, white, Old Saxon, thing, demon, creature. So what we're seeing in both uses of this word, in these words, and this is just one part of it, is it is deeply embedded in the demonic system to play these words against the human family as ways to deviate and divide a large group. Because as we saw right here, the biggest fear is the uniting, okay? All right, so let's go look at this slide right here. Look at this. We've got this circle right here, this oval. This represents the entire human family. And the demonic system, it divides everything vertically. It wants us to think of things, and this is part of the way which we've been educated over the past 400 years, but really over the last 60 or 70 years is this intense amount of being able to separate what things are, to study. That's what rational minded is. You're able to see how things are different. And there's a real value for that. But without the holistic training of seeing how things are the same, you know, that's where we run into problems. But that being said, we are taught, and it's getting more and more so, every fissure is happening within the human family on this vertical division. Race, gender, religion, everything is being divided up more and more and more and more and more and more. And part of the reason is because the demonic system doesn't want you to look at it horizontally. They don't want you to look at the division, because there is a value in dividing things. And, there are truths to this. The words may come with stigma, and there may be some demonic elements within that. But that being said, there is an importance in understanding differences. But that being said, this is what they don't want you to see, this horizontal division, and that between the homo sapien and then the demonic. Because within this family of all human beings, there is definitely demonic people. And so I would even say, like, there's probably a range. We could look at this line as moving, so let's jump into it. So there's, as it relates to human beings and being demonic, there are two types. There are primary and there are secondary. And so let's jump into primary. And primary is a created demon. And so this was best expressed in the movie Rosemarys Baby. And so what do we have right here? Rosemarys Baby came out in 1968. Like, there's so much information in this movie, like, in so many different ways, from, like, the people involved to where it was shot. Like, there's anything connected to this, you're dealing with something which is, let's go look and see what this movie's about. So Rosemary's Baby is a 1968 psychological horror film written and directed by Roman Polanski. So Roman Polanski, his shortly 2 years after this movie, or a year after this movie, his pregnant wife is a victim in the Manson murders. Okay. And we all know Roman Polanski and his pedophile ways. So the film chronicles the story of a pregnant woman who suspects that an evil cult wants to take her baby for use of rituals. She doesn't suspect. That's what happens. That's what the whole friggin' movie's about. And so this woman, and they show you, like, how the story can be hidden in front of the victim. The victim doesn't even realize that there is a multi-connected cast of people bringing them into a certain scenario, and they don't even realize what's happening. But in this scene, you have Rosemary, and she's drugged. She's knocked unconscious. She lives in an apartment building, the Dakota, where John Lennon was shot. And she is brought into the building, into the apartment next to the one which she lived when she's unconscious. And there is a satanic group, and they are performing a ritual to summon the demon to impregnate her. That's what this whole friggin' movie's about. And she births the beast. So this isn't like fiction. This is a eyes wide shut revelation of the method of creating demonic human beings. Like, at the onset of impregnation. Impregnation, is that the word? I believe so. Is a summoning. And so we see a little bit of this talked about at Aleister Crowley in his novel, The Moonchild, a novel written by Aleister Crowley in 1917. The plot involves a magical war between a group of white magicians and black magicians. Again, we're coming back to these words, right? Over an unborn child. So this is, and that unborn child, what doesn't get into, it's specifically being created to house a certain entity. And Babylon Working, which was the rituals done by Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, was a specific ritual to bring about a moon child. This is one example, but I can't say this for certain, but I would say with a very high degree of probability, how do you think those of royal heritage are created? Particularly when you think of, like, when they're born, when they were conceived. Go research Groom of the Stool. And you'll see that everything of royalty is taken ritualistically. So undoubtedly, the creation of another being is going to be handled in that way. And I would say, and this is also, you go and you do research in satanic cults, this is the technique. So this is your first level demon, just brought into existence with the demonic, entity, psychology, whatever it would be, and undoubtedly raised to inhabit such attributes and expression. And so now let's go and let's talk a little bit about then what a secondary demonic being is. And so that comes about. There's a normal process of being a homo sapien, of no matter what you're born into, there's a process of being born pure and whole. And then as we mature, parts of us are given away. We have to stop being what we would naturally be in order to be something else for survival's sake, whether that's just to be part of a family or a group. And then and there are initiations of giving part of yourself away, of giving part of your youth away, of moving from one part of human expression to another part. And so part of the human experience is then the reclaiming of all that has gone away. And so that's just natural. And we currently live, for the last 60, 70 years, maybe even longer than that, we've been living in a culture which has done two things. It has taken away the honor in these experiences by removing the rituals and replacing them with occultic rituals which people are completely unconscious to. And at the same time, society itself, the values being perpetrated within society, bring out the worst qualities of being human. So it's like bringing out, like really, really weaponizing like natural human what would be called psychological defense mechanisms. So like really making people like the most selfish, egotistic, non-compassionate, victimized, like all of this like sort of stuff, which is just like the antithesis of being a wise one, while at the same time robbing any real meaningful initiations and rituals to then owning the process of maturity of life, death, and rebirth. So when we live in the system, when you're raised in the system, and because the human being is so natural to inherit the qualities in which the system which they're born into, their adaptability, a demonic system which was made to be anti-human on so many levels, it's going to go and create these secondary demonic beings. And so this is a little bit different, as you can imagine, than someone who was like, raised in utero to house demonic frequency entities, whatever you want to call it. But they become it just because the human expression is to imprint upon it. And then you look at our culture right now, which has really been drumming up more and more and more of this anti-human behavior. And it's like, just by being alive in it, probably the electromagnetic waves and the frequencies which are embodied within, just the makeup of computers, just the cycling of the primary chip, that's probably enhancing, something within me recording this and you watching it on a computer Black Mirror device, And what is that? That's like, those are demonic entities whispering in your ear. So this is how we have, when I said before right here, like this is like a floating scale. Like, we can look at all of the human beings, where they lie on this like demonic homo sapien, wise one scale. But then within ourselves, we're always being influenced. You just decide what you're going to feed and what you're not going to feed, as the old tale says. That's what grows. So all of that is kind of a setup for what's seemingly coming. If you're paying attention to what's being projected on the Black Mirror, and then maybe how it's showing itself in your own physical home. Maybe not your home itself. Maybe it is your home. Maybe you're seeing it in the place where you're living, and maybe it's just like the area you live. There's a heightened it's heightened, and what's becoming clear is the system, the entire system is demonic. Everything which we've been born into has been demonic, and it is becoming more and more clear. Like, there's once a point where it wasn't so obvious, and you could maybe go in and out of different, I'm going to call them worlds. But soon it's going to become more and more clear. We're seeing this most clearly. The airlines, I think, is a perfect example. The airlines are coming together, and they're saying, yeah, we want to open up, but we're going to need this thing called an immunity passport. It may, and I doubt that, it's my opinion, we'll see. I don't think that it's going to become illegal. They can forcibly vaccinate the entire population. That's not going to be the policy. There's going to be threats, but it's mostly going to be like through like social pressure, and then access to the world which you're familiar with. You're going to have to go along with the game, and one of the first places it's going to be very obvious is flying. Immunity passports are most likely you're gonna have to prove, if you want to fly. You gotta have the shot. And I've been following along, reading like comments of folks like saying like, no, they can't do this, or blah blah blah. But the truth of the matter is, the airline industry is the demonic industry. Travel is fantastic. I don't like the sound of not traveling, but this is an example, I think, of what's more and more is going to come. Like, it's going to become more uncomfortable for you and me to participate in that system. Like, obviously money and schools, and like social distancing and masks, all of that is going to become maybe unless there's Bacon's rebellion. It's not going to. But this is the trickery with the demonic system. Even with the Bacon's rebellion, wanting to go back to the system is still demonic. That's the problem, and so that's why the importance of being able to this is where we're getting into faith here, but to sense and imagine, if you will, and before you're not even going to be able to picture it maybe, of what a world will look like where you have all of these benefits of which we get from like flying and from all of this other stuff, but it's not part of this like chemtrail, military industrial complex, TSA, pat down, like everything about it, humans, smuggling, like everything associated with that. There is anti-human elements, even if there's good stuff which go about it. And so it's like that world cannot exist. We're at a period of time where things are changing. And so what we do not want to see happen is a revolution of a turning of a circle within the system. That's all a revolution is just the rotation of the circle. But if you stay within the same wheel, well, it's the same system. So it's like, this is the time of recognizing, like, I don't know what it means, like what I'm going to do without this, but I have to be willing to walk away from it to find what that next step is. This is also one of the links into the whole Susquehanna mystery, the whole Susquehanna and river understanding, because we've been robbed of being able to understand how to navigate the natural reality, and we've been, and I'm going to talk about this in future videos. But this is a key thing, is like, yes, like all of the tools which we know of how to navigate reality. Oh, I'm going to save a whole bunch of money and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to have gold, or I'm going to, I'll have my satellite phone or what have you. Like, it's all still part of the system. There's going to be something else, and there's going to be a transition, I would imagine. I don't know, because we're watching this unfold in real life, in real time. But the tools which we had before are part of that system, but there are other tools. This is the signature of things, and this is the doctrine, the signature of doctrines, is the written within the physical reality are the navigation points, and understanding the true nature of flowing water and how that ties into synchronicity and how you navigate life and how life's threads will naturally bring you to the right place at the right time with the right people with an effortless unfolding. That is what I am witnessing and what I'm encouraging people to look for as the ways around this particular time and probably what is to come. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Hopefully this inspired some thought. We're in this together. Part of what this new time is about is the lack of students and teachers, gurus and followers. It's much more one-on-one. We're all student teachers, and so this information is not a complete study, but meant as an inspirational seed to then go and grow with. And that also works with me, because until I'm able to fully experience full, complete control of my physical body without any external, I know that there's still more for me to live or to learn. So this Mike, it's June 25th, and until the next one, enjoy the travel.